It's time to talk about the fifth stroke, which is underwater kicking. If swimmers want to go fast, especially in short course swimming, they've got to be good underwater. While it used to be a nice added bonus, at this point it's basically a necessity. And what's cool is the skill sets required to be effective underwater kicking, and even the body shapes and the body sizes that are rewarded in underwater kicking are a little bit different than what's used on the surface. So for those swimmers that are struggling to be effective on the surface, going underwater can be their secret weapon. And in this video, we're going to go over to the skills that are really important for fast underwater kicking so you can help your swimmers go fast underwater. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers go faster. There are four main skills that swimmers need to be effective at in order to kick fast underwater. The first is they need to have some point of stability from which they can create undulation. The second is they need to be able to create a lot of propulsion. The third is there needs to be symmetry of the kick. They need to be really good with the up kick as opposed to just the down kick. And they need to be able to kick underwater with great alignment. We're going to start off focusing on stability. If swimmers don't have a point of stability, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to create a wave of undulation, which ultimately results in a lot of propulsion. Now, here's the important part. Here's the nuance. Some swimmers create stability by being really rigid in their hands, their head, and even their upper body, and then undulating from that point, while other swimmers can create stability in their upper body, their head, and their hands while using an undulation motion from that point. The key consideration is that because swimmers are suspended in a fluid, they have to have some stability in order to move from. If they don't have anything, they're just going to be moving all over the place. And I'm sure we've seen swimmers that do have a lot of hand and upper body motion, and it's not coordinated in any way because they're just moving, and they're just moving aimlessly. There needs to be some stability from which the undulation can flow from. However, swimmers have some flexibility in terms of how stiff they are with that point of stability. I find that it's generally more effective to help swimmers feel stability by having them keep things really tight, especially at first. And then as they get more skilled, you can let them open it up and kind of flow through the upper body once they have figured out how to create stability. So let's check it out in action. So our first swimmer here is going to display a lot of stability in the upper body. You can see that the hands, the head, the arms aren't moving around a little bit. You can see that they definitely do have a little bit of wave to it, but there's a lot of control there. So that little bit of movement allows for that wave to get bigger and bigger, but it all comes from a point of stability in the hands and the upper body. This is in stark contrast to swimmers that are just moving back and forth and their upper body and their hands are moving all over the place. When that happens, it's going to be really difficult for them to undulate and to undulate effectively. You can see another swimmer here. He's really rigid, he's really tight, and that's going to create stability, which is going to allow him to have a really effective kick and allow him to let that wave of undulation travel down through the feet and then really create a lot of propulsion when he finally kicks at the end of the stroke cycle. If his hands are moving all over the place, it's going to be really difficult for him to maintain both that kick tempo and maintain an effective kick tempo that allows him to create a lot of propulsion. One more example here, you can see that there's pretty good stability from the upper body. There's a little bit of motion, and that motion gets magnified as it travels down his body. It's by creating some stability up top that allows him to get more and more range of motion and really whip through the entire kick and to create a lot of speed at the end of each kick. So we'll take a look at another swimmer here, and in this case, there is more undulation in the upper body. There's more movement in the upper body. However, it's moving in a wave rhythm as opposed to just moving back and forth. And so what's key is that swimmers learn how to create some stability and then wave from that stability. And then once they have that skill, they can get more range of motion. They can get more movement in it, and that's perfectly fine. That's totally different than just moving the hands, the upper body in a haphazard manner. While this swimmer does have more range of motion than the previous swimmers, he still has total control of this range of motion, and he's using it to undulate rather than just move around. And so that's a key distinction between those two different types. Either are perfectly acceptable. These have all been really fast swimmers that we're watching. What's different is that there's some stability, and you can see the wave gets bigger and bigger as they go, and the only way that's going to happen is that there has to be some control over what's happening with the hands and the upper body. And then the wave can get created there, and then it can get magnified depending on how much the swimmer moves the upper body and how much they move the lower body throughout the rest of the kick. So when swimmers are struggling with their underwater kick, I almost always look to stability first to figure out what's going wrong. In a lot of cases, they don't know how to create a wave of undulation. They just kind of kick. And the reason they don't know how to create a wave of undulation is they can't create any stability in the upper body, the head, or the hands from which they can create that wave of undulation. So for me, the first step is always trying to help them learn how to be more rigid with the upper body. And once they can figure out how to create a wave from that point of stability, that point of rigidity, then I let them kind of open things up and figure out how much range of motion they need to have through the hands, through the upper body to kick effectively. But already have a swimmer that's really good underwater and they have more range of motion in the upper body, they already get this concept. You might have them play with it just a little bit, but you never really want to restrict that upper body range of motion because they're using it well and they're using it to create speed. If you want ideas about how to actually improve underwater kicking stability, check out the video above.